of my screen, I gotta tell you all. Okay. Okay, so I think we're going to go ahead and get started. Um, if you don't mind just staying on mute during the presentation, that would be great, just in case you have background noise or something going on that you are not aware of. I have a new dog, and so I apologize in advance because I can't mute when I'm talking, but hopefully she will stay quiet for us. And Worship, I'm sure it's silent and perfect at your house, right? Everything is good where you are. Yes. Okay.
Always, always.
Always. It is very calm and it's not calm in my house right now. So I'm going to go ahead and get us started. Welcome. This is our informational webinar about the Dissemination and Implementation Science Graduate Certificate Program here at the University of Colorado on the Anschutz Medical Campus, which is in Aurora, right outside of Denver. I'm going to just give you an overview of who is involved in the program and then what we're going to cover during this webinar. And then, as I said, when we get to the end of the presentation, if you have some specific questions, we're happy to answer those and help you understand both the application process and whether this might be something that you're interested in applying for. So I'll start off just with the kind of the administrative team for the certificate. So we have me, Tina Stutz. I'm director and co-director with Borshika Rabin, who's at University of California, San Diego, but previously in the long ago past was at Colorado, and we can never let her go. And she is still a really valuable member of our D&I team here. So she's been co-director since being one of the founding directors. Jordan, if you were just on a few minutes ago, Jordan Crawford is our coordinator. He is an amazing administrative organized person who is a good person to ask if you have questions about finding things on the website specifically or who to contact with questions. And then we actually fall under two different centers. So one is ACCORDS, which is the Adult and Child Center for Outcomes Research and Delivery Science at the University of Colorado. It is part of the School of Medicine. It is also in a partnership with Children's Hospital Colorado. And so through Accords, we have a lot of methodological cores, one of which is a D&I science core. And so the vast majority of faculty who teach in the certificate program or who are part of the program are also faculty in our D&I science program within Accords. And then the other umbrella that we fall under is the graduate school. And so we are administered through the Clinical Sciences Graduate Program, which is a graduate program within the Colorado Clinical and Translational Sciences Institute, so the CCTSI, which is one of the CTSAs that many of you are probably familiar with. And they exist at many institutions. So in ours, part of the educational programming is the Clinical Sciences Graduate Program. So Lisa Sacudo directs that. And so we are kind of under her clinical science umbrella. And Galit Minkin is an administrative lead you will hear from her frequently. There is also another administrative assistant that if you end up applying and being part of the program, you will hear from her as well. Her name's Amanda Whiting. And so these 5 people are pretty active and in contact with you about the program as you apply and also if you end up enrolling. We have grown our faculty, so we actually now have 2 slides for our D&I certificate faculty. I used to jam everybody on one slide, and finally I realized that that wasn't really possible. You couldn't read anyone's names anymore. So we are really lucky to have implementation science faculty specifically, mostly from the University of Colorado, but we also have several who are from outside institutions and groups that we partner with and collaborate with who are really excited to be part of training the next generation of D&I scientists. And so Russ Glasgow, many of you are probably familiar with him. He is the director of our D&I science core within Accords, our Health Services Research Center. And then we have Monica Perez-Yoles, Bethany Kwan, Anna Ma, Katie Trinkley, Meredith Fort, Amy Hubschman, who along with Borshika was one of the first, was like the first certificate co-director with Borshika. We have Jody Haltrop, who is here at Colorado, Lindsay Lennox, Nikki Wagner is here at Colorado. And then we have Katie Wilgang, Ross Brownson, Allison Hamilton. They are currently the three outside external faculty who are experts in various parts of D&I science who have been consistently teaching classes for us. So we typically have when we get into the classes, we have a core faculty of probably about 8 people who teach most of our classes, but then we will pull people in, and we also have guest speakers. In addition to Ross, Allison, and Katie, we have lots of other national D&I speakers who come into our classes. So today's presentation, we're going to answer these following key questions. And so some of these you may, if you are kind of experienced or have a little bit of a background in D&I science and are looking to just expand that through the program, a few of these slides will look really familiar to you. If you are new to D&I science, we do start off with what is D&I science, just to make sure that you know what this program is about. We'll talk about who should pursue the D&I science certificate, why you would pursue it, what the certificate courses are and how are they held, when the application cycle opens, and how you would actually apply. So I'm going to turn it over to Borshika on this slide, and Borshika, just let me know when you want me to switch slides for you.
Thank you so much, Tina, and hello, everyone. Thank you for coming today, and those of you who are watching the recording, hello as well. Tina and I are doing these presentations every year, and I think that the need for this slide is becoming less and less important. Most of you who are applying, you know already something about dissemination and or implementation research. However, we will just keep presenting this, and so I will just use this slide to say that I hope that the reason why you are here is because something, whether it's your own work or some presentation that you attended, made you think that dissemination and or implementation research would advance what you are trying to do in your career. We will talk about the different places where people come from, and certainly dissemination and implementation research is transportable across fields. It is focusing on making sure that evidence is distributed to the people who are benefiting from it. And both dissemination research, which is mostly focused on the actual distribution, packaging, and implementation research, which is more focused on supporting the local uptake and sustained implementation of programs, are concerned with this gap that we experience, which we can go to the next slide. Well, that will come as well. But nevertheless, we will talk about how much gap there is between creation of programs and actual delivery. But first, we wanted to remind you that you all are coming from different fields, and you might have different types of things that you are trying to implement. Often we think about these as evidence-based interventions or programs. Here I am showing this visual from Brown and colleagues because I want to have you expand your understanding what can be implemented. Basically, anything can be implemented. We often think about these 7 Ps, programs, practices, principles, procedures, products, skills, and policies. And all of these might be in your wheelhouse to think about. And so when you think about your needs, think about all of these different things because you can apply this methodology broadly. We can go to the next slide. Here it is. So I mentioned that, as we are thinking about dissemination and implementation research, we are primarily thinking about this gap that has been identified by Balash and colleagues, and then later on Green and colleagues presented it in their publication as well, that it takes approximately 17 years to get 14% of research evidence into practice. And there are some follow-up studies showing that even though this was determined in early 2000, this number of 17 years is not really decreasing. So we still have a lot to do, but we also know that when we use active dissemination and implementation approaches, we can actually decrease the 17 years to 3 years, and we can increase those 14% up to 80%. And this is just based on one study. And then if we think about the COVID times and how quickly COVID vaccine was brought to us, we might be able to actually decrease this even more. So there are ways to make this less problematic and less wasteful, and that's what we are concerned with in this program and in dissemination and implementation science in general. So if you go to the next slide, I will also mention that many of you are often coming from traditional medical school backgrounds, clinical backgrounds, and familiar with the translational spectrum, going from bench to bedside to patients' practice and public health. And most commonly, when people think about dissemination and implementation science, they think about that T3, T4, so the end of the pathway translation. However, you will learn in our program, in fact, we have a full course dedicated to this, that we believe that it is actually starting sooner. You should be considering dissemination and implementation science methods and principles, even in that T1, T2, and earlier stages. So we are going to talk about this across the spectrum. So if you are actually an efficacy researcher, I think you are not in the bad place because we could teach you some tricks that might make your efficacy work better. We can go to the next slide. So let's talk about why we even do this program. When it started, actually 2019 was our first full cohort, the first full official cohort. There were much less programs. This year, the past couple of years, I would say there was a really big bump in the number of programs that are available. There are still few programs that are available in a synchronous national manner. Many of them are still local, so you have to go physically to a place. Ours remain this really accessible program from the US and outside of the US, and it is still serving a need for rigorous training in DNI science. There are very few formal academic programs, a couple of PhD programs around the country that train DNI scientists, and people often don't want to go through a full PhD program. So these are ways that people who are interested, yeah, most likely like yourselves, DNI can learn this in an efficient, relatively short manner, but getting really nice hands-on help. So we can go to the next slide. We are using a philosophy that we have not changed over the past 6, 7 years. We are really dedicated to working with you where you are. And so we are tailoring our materials and assignments to make them relevant to the experience level, background, and future goals of the student. We do this still within a group setting, so allowing for you to interact with others, but we provide a pretty intense personal attention. So you meet with others who are interested in this, you share experiences, you might end up collaborating. You also get individualized attention from your instructors. We generally have 10 to 18 students in a class, and most frequently, and now I think all exclusively, two instructors. And so we usually split the students. You are going to work with the same instructor through the semester, and you are going to get a lot of feedback that is relevant to your work. We also teach you rigorous theoretical background, but we are not stopping there. We really have you apply that immediately to your own work. So hopefully as you come into the program, you already have research ideas in mind that you can apply this program to. We can go to the next slide. And then we are a competency-based program. So we have been building on the competencies by Perek and colleagues that was later expanded by Hipschman and colleagues. And we are using those as we evaluate the program, each classes. So we look at what kind of competencies you gain. And we believe that you are actually going to become that card-carrying implementation scientist by the end of this program, because we know that these competencies are baked into the classes, and we make sure that they are actually taking shape as you are completing the classwork. Next slide, please. So the structure of the program is that you have to complete 12 credit hours within generally a 2 to 3 year period. Tina will talk about the shortest possible time and the longest, I guess. But we are requiring 8 credit courses that are the required courses. You can see there are 3 of them. An introductory course to implementation science, so everyone will get to that same level by the end of that. And then we go into an advanced methods course, which is designs and mixed methods. And then we have what I already mentioned, the designing for dissemination course, and we will talk about each a little bit more in a moment. These are differing credit hours, so 3, 3, and 2, and the timing when they are offered are provided in the structure. We thought this through in a way that we can get you out the fastest from the program. So we have some tricks for you as well if you need to go faster. Next slide, please. And then in addition to the 8, you need to take 4 elective courses. And Tina will speak to this, but elective courses need to be from the University of Colorado. You cannot, unfortunately, bring in classes from other institutions. But in addition to the ones that we list here, we have a whole list of other electives offered through CU's programming. And based on discussions with Tina or myself, you can get approved to study something else. But these are the ones that are most commonly taken because they are designed for this DNI program. And we will again talk about them very briefly. And Tina, I think it is, oh no, I am still going to talk about intro class. So the introduction to dissemination and implementation research, Tina and I have been co-teaching this for many, many years. It is again bringing you up to speed. So some of you will come in with more knowledge. The good news is that you are going to work on an actual proposal as you are in the class. So if you are more advanced, you are not going to be bored. You are just going to apply the concepts at a more advanced level. And if you are brand new to the program, the only request I would have is that you reflect on an actual research project to bring to this class, because that we don't want you to just do a theoretical activity. So that would be the only piece. We are covering key terminology, DNI models, methods, and measures. We also talk about sustainability. We talk about sometimes the implementation, equity, and how that applies in the context of implementation science. We definitely, our biggest focus is on the DNI theories, models, and frameworks, though, because that's what the first frontier and the first barrier for everyone. And we want you to have a very good grasp of those, how to select them, how to use them as you move into the next phase of the program. And I am just looking at if I missed anything. Tina already mentioned Tina and I teach a lot of the course, but we invite some of our national reputation guests, and they come in and talk about, for example, Byron Powell talks about implementation strategies now for many, many years. We have a number of health equity scholars who came in, etc. I think this is time for me to hand it back to Tina.
I'm so rusty finding the mute button now, which is really nice. And I took a little time off over the holidays, so I can't find the mute button. Thank you so much, Porshka. So let me switch to the next course. We're just going to give you a brief description in addition to the intro course that Porshka just talked about of each of our other offered required courses and then the elective. So the second required course is called Designs and Mixed Methods and Implementation Research. This is a great course because every year our cohort of students comes in with varying levels of expertise in different kinds of research. So sometimes we have people who are very experienced with qualitative research. Mixed methods research, we often have a lot of people who are more quantitatively oriented and they're a little bit newer to qualitative and mixed methods. So the benefit of this class is that it's not only about research design and mixed methods, so it covers qualitative, quantitative, and mixed methods approaches, but it's very specific to implementation research. So we use tons of examples from the implementation science literature around different ways that you can kind of conceptualize study design, different designs that are used or emerging in implementation science research versus what you might see in intervention research, effectiveness research, or other types of health services research. So it's very focused on the implementation science field. We've had a lot of instructors for this class. We're very lucky to draw expertise from the group that you see on here, plus others. We have had TAs for this course as well who have come in. The assignments in this course typically build to end with the components of a approach section for a grant application. And so you will do things in this course like visualization, coming up with figures, describing both quantitative and qualitative data collection methods, analysis methods, how you're integrating the two, which is really key for the mixed methods piece of it. It's a great class, 3 credit hours that's offered in the spring. And people typically take this class either second, like right after the intro class, or they wait a year and take it the following spring after taking something else. So there's some flexibility in when this class is taken. The third required class is Designing for Dissemination, Sustainability, and Equity. So this is taught by Bethany Kwan and Lindsay Lennox. They've been teaching it together for years as well. This is a pretty cool class because I think it's the only class like this that I've seen anywhere, actually. The focus really is on what Borshika mentioned when we looked at that T1 through T4, translational research spectrum, where exactly implementation science and D&I fits in. And the idea is that it should fit in as early as possible, as soon as you are developing even an innovation or an intervention or a program or a policy. Before you get to implementing it, you have to be thinking about whether it is implementable and whether it's sustainable, whether and how you could disseminate it, whether it's going to result in equitable access or outcomes or not. And so, like, all of those things come in before you even get to implementation. They should be things that you're thinking about in the development, proof of concept, efficacy, and effectiveness stages too. So there are these design thinking processes that are really key to how you actually do that. Start early when you're thinking about dissemination, sustainability, and equity. This class is also really heavy on engagement methods, which are key. And so if you have been reading or doing work in this field, co-design is a really hot topic, how you actually partner with um, policymakers, with administrators, with patients or clients or communities, and with the people who will be implementing interventions, whether those are clinicians or teachers or whoever it is. How do you actually engage with all of those partners to come up with both elements of interventions, programs, policies, but also implementation strategies for how to ensure that those are delivered well with high reach, that they reach everyone who should be reached, that they can be sustained over time, et cetera. So this is a great class. Most people, the intro class comes before this. So in your first fall, you take the intro class, and then in your second fall, most people will take this class. Now I'll talk just quickly about our elective courses. So the first one is Context and Adaptation in D&I Research. This is another one that Borshik and I have taught together since the course came into existence. It's a really fun class. It's 2 credit hours. It's offered each spring. And this is basically a deeper dive into lots of the theories, models, and frameworks that are focused on context and, questions like, why does something work here, but it doesn't work here? Why has it been developed and benefited this type of place, but not this type of place? What are the specific contextual factors like barriers or facilitators, resources, whatever it might be, that affect implementation in different contexts, including contexts over time? And then the process of adaptation. So adaptation, if you have read a lot in implementation science, it's big, and we know that adaptation just happens. And so rather than just knowing that it happens and then trying to figure out what's going on, this class gives you a lot of tools and process frameworks to learn how to assess, guide, and balance making adaptations with fidelity or the quality of delivery of an intervention or a program or a policy, whatever your P is. And then we also have a focus on multi-level and dynamic contextual issues in D&I research. So how do you assess context over time? How frequently should you do it? What tools and methods are there to do this? What kind of frameworks could you use to help kind of organize your thoughts and describe this well, and be able to like draw lessons from what you're learning? And then the role of D&I science in advancing health equity. Many adaptations are aiming at ensuring that under-resourced or marginalized or historically oppressed populations are receiving the same benefits from what our entire research endeavor has generated in terms of innovations to improve health and mental health and education and all of these different fields. So the role of D&I science in advancing that health equity is really important, and is one of the things that we cover in that class too. This is our second formal elective, the Grant Writing for Dissemination and Implementation Science class. It's a summer course. And so people tend to think about their summer schedules to decide when or if they want to take this class. It's another 2 credit hour class. It's got a very intensive focus on grant applications specific to D&I calls. And so it's not your typical grant writing class. So a lot of you may have already taken grant writing classes or trainings. I know that I love going to grant writing workshops. I think you learn amazing things, like no matter what career stage you're at. But for D&I, it's really helpful to have a class that is really focused on D&I grant writing specifically, because if you have had this experience, you know that there are D&I reviewers out there. So lots of review panels for foundations, for NIH, for like lots of different sponsors and funders are bringing on people with implementation science expertise because of the interest in this field and the growing number of applications over time. But that means that they're looking for specific things that may be different than what your typical grant application might look like. So the focus of this class really is thinking about grant writing generally, how we always think about grants personship, but specifically for D&I in particular. And so as with all of our classes, there are a series of assignments. You work on uh, basically a small version of a grant, although some people have actually worked on their, an R01 or a K application that they end up submitting in the class. So there's some flexibility about what kind of grant it is that you work on. And you receive lots of individualized feedback from the course instructors. And then this class also culminates in mock study section at the end. So you get to review others and have peer reviewers reviewing yours as well as faculty. And so you get tons of wonderful feedback on your grant development. This is our final formal elective that we offer. It is an advanced research topics in D&I science class. This is just a 1 credit hour class. It's offered in the fall. And that way, some people end up taking it in addition to, for example, the designing for dissemination class, if they're able to take 2 classes in one semester just to get another credit hour under their belts. This is a great class because it's driven by the interests of the students in the class. So, and it's small. This is always one of our smallest classes. Like this might have only 5 students in it in some semesters. So it's structured similarly to a journal club. There are some critiques of publications. You will present on, you'll kind of summarize and present and discuss articles that you have found that are in your specific area of interest. And then there's some peer critiques that happen in this class. You also typically get to attend our D&I science program monthly meetings. So within Accords, our D&I science program has kind of a a monthly or bi-monthly, depending on the time of year, meeting where we talk about new topics in D&I, or like our last one was all about the D&I conference, the Academy Health Conference that just happened in December. And so students from this class are typically brought into that. It's often held at the same time so that we can just give you the kind of networking experience and give you the opportunity to come to those meetings as well. So that's a great class. I didn't put on here, but our additional classes, we are able to approve things like independent studies. We have students who have taken this very cool systems thinking class that's taught by one of our D&I certificate graduates over in the Colorado School of Public Health, all around system science and systems thinking. We have people who've taken like ethics, like, research ethics classes with a focus, like their focus is on ethics and implementation research. So we are pretty able to help you think through what is going to be the best use of your credit hours as you finish this program. Before I pass it back to Borshika on the next slide, I do want to say that one really strong feature of this program is that it is unusual to have this many classes that have been developed by implementation scientists to teach you in D&I science and to put those together as a certificate. So there are like Borshika was mentioning, there has been this kind of like burgeoning number of programs available, which is really awesome and helps because our field really needs a lot more training and people need more opportunities to get this training. But in a lot of programs, there's like maybe 2 D&I classes, and then you take some trial design, like some of the public health classes, or you take some clinical trials classes or a methods class. This program, though, is really focused on D&I. So every single instructor is an implementation scientist who is funded, published. It's a pretty awesome set of courses. So I think over time, I took that for granted early, I think, but like I have really been noticing that the array of classes that we have and what people take in this program, it is robust. I mean, we are really covering partially because of the competencies, but we are with the array of both required and elective courses, we're covering tons of implementation science. So you're not just getting, two D&I classes and then some other research methods courses. You really come out of this hitting all of those competencies. All right, I'm going to pass it back to you, Borshka.
Thank you so much. Let me also just kind of add another layer to this. As Tina mentioned, often actual very specialized or more kind of unique DNI classes are not in these other programs, and we really are priding ourselves. And I think it was not in any ways in a competitive way, but that's how we were thinking about this program, that we wanted to create DNI specific advanced courses. And so it's been exciting to see that grow, and I am sure that there will be more added to the program as we move forward. But let me talk a little bit about the who component. Who would be a good ideal student in this program? And you might have already noted that even though we note here that we are looking for researchers who are conducting this T3, T4 translational research, we would also be excited to welcome researchers or clinical researchers who are in the efficacy phase of their research, because there are some great principles that can be applied in that stage to make your program more sustainable, more feasible for different kind of settings. So the most common type of researchers who are in our programs or clinical researchers are in that T3, T4 phase, but we do get folks who are interested in moving in that phase or in the efficacy stage. We are also including not just researchers, but we had some excellent implementers or professionals who are in the health services, community health, and public health areas, who are not necessarily seeing themselves as primarily researchers, but they might be evaluators or, again, implementers in a program, and they feel that using these principles would improve their programming. So that's another group. If we continue to the next slide, you can see what kind of topical domains we represent. People come from all different backgrounds, so it really makes it fun when you are in the classroom. We encourage you to have your camera on, be present. We are synchronous, so we are basically interacting with each other. It's not a program where you are going to receive a asynchronous assignment and you work on it on your own, or you watch recorded presentations. It is happening real time. And you are going to interact with folks from many different domains. So you can see psychology, pediatrics, internal medicine, surgery, maternal fetal medicine, psychiatry, and I'm skipping, as you can tell. We had so many different areas come in, and sometimes we have the same area, multiple folks, and they can interact with each other. But most often, you are going to meet with individuals who are trying to apply DNI to completely different spaces. And that can really bring forward the applicability and challenge us to think through how we apply these different methods together. Next slide, please. We are also receiving applications and participants from different stages of their career. The most natural fit, I am sure many of you are in that stage, is career awardees, individuals who are just completed their PhD or did a little work and they are moving into this potentially postdoc or beyond stage. Definitely a good fit. We have worked with many individuals who are submitting a K award, and so they work it through during the program, or they submitted it, they are just starting to execute it, they are improving their program through this. We get a lot of faculty, though, from mid-career and senior stage. These are individuals who want to become experts in DNI science. They might not have that expertise in their department or institution, and they want to be those folks who are going to actually start DNI programming in their, again, division, department, or institution. We do get PhD and DRPH students. This is a potential minor concentration for them, and we have found that they do well as well. And then might be students who are advanced, perhaps they had a lot of practical work. They are thinking about moving into a PhD program, and they want to know whether DNI science would be a good area for that. So they might be coming in with a completed master's, but more of an advanced experience. And that worked as well. And again, we are working with all these different folks. Next slide, please. As I mentioned, and Tina mentioned it many times, we are fully available online, synchronous. So our classes are happening synchronously. Everyone is together. So you have to be, bad news, you have to be there at the given time and you have to have your camera on and ready to interact. But good news, that will give you a much different experience. And so we have a lot of conversations in the classroom. It's not lecturing at you, but working with you on a topic. And we have had remote locations represented from across the US and Canada so far. I think the time difference might make it a little bit harder for someone from Europe or Australia, but I haven't counted it out. So if you are from another country, continent, please don't disconnect. We might be able to figure out something. And then we are, and Tina already mentioned this, situated within the clinical sciences graduate program. So we give a formal graduate certificate. It's not just a kind of an institutional written up paper, but instead it is coming from a formal graduate program. We are accredited through that, and we are actually being checked on regularly. And the courses can be applied to graduate degrees at CU. So if you are in a current program, PhD or the MScs, which is a Master in Science of Clinical Sciences, I guess, then you can apply some of these courses to that completion of that program. I believe if you go to the next slide, this will be again Tina. Yes.
I think this is me. Okay, so we're going to talk just briefly about how to apply. Um, in full disclosure, the University of Colorado Anschutz Medical Campus Graduate School website changes a little bit every year. So we try to give you the easiest information. It's on our website. So that link at the top, if you go to the DNI certificate program website, we have this kind of section at the top where you can pick a tab, what you want to look at. So we've got admission requirements, the required application documents, and then some information for international applicants. So I've got some screenshots here that are just from the website, but when you go explore this, you are going to look through it and get more information that I'm going to give you right now. We have an application cycle annually. So it opens on January 15th. It'll close on February 15th. The DNI certificate program will not show up except for during that window. So if you go in looking for it today, which I did just to see if things had changed, it isn't there. But our website it includes instructions on how to find it. And then if you're having trouble finding it, you're trying to apply and you just literally cannot find the right way to do it, you can email me or you can email Galit, who is her contact information is going to be in this presentation, and she can direct you to the right place. So it's always a little challenging to tell you 100% that my screenshots are completely correct when it's anything that is of the graduate schools because I don't have control over those. But here I'll show you. So our requirements, we do require that you have completed a bachelor's degree. And as Borshika said, like the vast majority of our students are faculty or fellows, and then we have some doctoral students often. And I feel like we've had a couple of people who've had a master's degree and aren't in a doctoral program, but are doing something like they're program evaluators for a health system, for example, or doing something in a kind of large public health setting where DNI is really useful to them. So we don't require a master's, we do require the bachelor's. We have a minimum 3.0 GPA required from your bachelor's degree. And then there are no prerequisite courses for getting into the program. There are prerequisites for taking classes. So you can't take the electives until you've taken the intro class, for example. So you will be completing an online graduate school application. That is the CU Anschutz application. There are 2 questions that we ask you to provide a statement for. Each of them has a 250-word limit. First is what makes you interested in specialized training in DNI science. And second is what do you hope to gain professionally from the certificate program. These are really important because to keep our class sizes small, our cohorts are not huge. So we typically admit like 10 to 12 new students each year, but we get many more times that applications. And so please think about your statement of interest because it does help us differentiate between people who are applying for the program. It really helps us understand what it is that you're hoping to learn and get out of it. We also will ask for your CV or resume. There will be a requirement for transcripts from your highest completed degree. And if you're an MD, you have to include your undergraduate degree transcript as well. There's also going to be a question about how this program will fit into your current responsibilities. We have very few students who are full-time students, right? So occasionally we have somebody, like I mentioned, who might be a doctoral student, they're a full-time student. And this is just like how these are just classes they're taking. But for the vast majority, we have clinicians, we have administrators, we have postdocs, we have people who have lots of other job responsibilities, and they're doing this on top of their regular job. If you're lucky, you have a K, and you have to do this for your K. Like this is part of your K training, and that's built into your job at the time, which is really awesome. We do want to make sure that this fits into your current responsibilities, though. So if you uh, cannot attend synchronous classes, then it is very unlikely that you'll be able to complete the certificate program, right? So we want you to be thinking about that a little bit ahead of time. And there is a place that you can actually upload an optional letter of support. And people have used this in the past to, like their chair has provided a statement, for example, that this is really important, that they support the person pursuing this training, and that they have the flexibility in their schedule to be able to attend classes and complete assignments. So things like that will strengthen your application for sure. There's also an application fee. I think that it is $50 for domestic applicants. I actually did not check that, but I don't think that it has gone up from previous years. For international applicants, it is probably more complicated. If you are an international applicant, please contact us for help with this, because we can make sure that we're giving you the most updated information that the graduate school has made available. So it will require transcripts again. There's a different application fee, and then there are some specific requirements for international students. So just reach out. You don't have to figure this out by yourself. If you fall into this category, we are happy to help you figure out what you need to be able to apply within the window. So our website, the certificate website, you've probably seen it already. It's where the video from today will be posted as well, if you want to go back and look at it again. So we have more information there on the application and admissions process. We include a link to the application on our website so that you can find it more easily, and you don't have to kind of navigate through going through the graduate school site. Like we'll just link you to where you need to go, and then we'll give you, for example, these 3 steps of like how to find the correct application, because certificates are different than other programs. And so we just want to make sure you find the right thing and apply to it. And if you are having trouble with that, Galit's email address is here. She's super helpful, and she's our liaison between the clinical science graduate program and the graduate school. So she's very helpful in solving problems with applications. Tuition costs, everybody always wants to know. Oops, that's an outdated link, but actually, if you just look up like tuition fees, graduate school, CU Anschutz, it'll take you to the current one, which is 2526 right here. This is correct. That link is last year's link. So when you go to this website, it's got all of the different educational programs and tuition costs on our campus, and they differ depending on whether it's like nursing or public health or what it is. So what you are going to look for is the clinical science MS or PhD program. That is the tuition structure that the D&I certificate program uses. So for this current year that we're in right now, it's been for a Colorado resident, it's $597 per credit hour and $1451 for non-residents of Colorado. And as a reminder, you're going to complete 12 credit hours total to finish the certificate program. And you can take, you can take over 3 years. We have some people who have taken over 3 years. But just in terms of like budgeting, you can also contact me if you want the history of what the tuition has been. It does go up a tiny bit, like maybe $50 a credit hour every year. And so if you're trying to kind of forecast how much it might cost in 3 years, you can probably do that based on our prior data. If you're a University of Colorado faculty member or staff, you can use tuition assistance if you're an eligible employee. So we do have plenty of people who use that tuition benefit who are here at CU. So for the fall 2026 cohort, that application will be available on the 15th of January. The link will be on our website. They'll close on the 15th. The application reviews will be complete in April, and all applicants will be notified via email by Galit of your status. We typically do accept and then often have a wait list. And on that wait list, we let that go into the summer months in case there are people who are accepted who end up not enrolling. So we want to make sure that we get as many people in as we can. If you are accepted and then you agree to enroll, then the graduate school will contact you. They have institutional requirements around immunization and background checks. The immunization requirements apply to online programs as well as in-person programs. And so it is possible to get waivers if you are not here on campus. But this is a requirement that they instituted last year that they are working through how to help people meet the requirement as easily as possible. And so I'm just giving you a little heads up that even if you are like in a different state, they're going to have some background check and immunization, at least questions that you have to answer. And then if you are part of the upcoming cohort, then our courses begin in late August of 2026. Um, I'm going to quickly just acknowledge a few people that are really important for our program. One is Jerica Bird. She's the director of Accord. She's been here for a few years now, and she's very supportive of this certificate program. All of our D&I certificate faculty, we really have amazing instructors, and they are so dedicated to giving you really high quality, personalized, detailed feedback. So one of the things that we often hear from students in our classes is like a level of surprise about the amount of detailed feedback that they're getting back on their work. But that's really what we want, is for you to get, it's like having a collaborator working with you and you've got an instructor giving you feedback on those assignments in these classes. And special thanks to Jordan, who just does an amazing job helping us organize things like this informational webinar, thanks to the CCTSI and the graduate school. One thing I will say, because I didn't answer this, or I don't think we mentioned this earlier, we typically have about half and half of our cohort is from Colorado / the Anschutz campus, but not always. We have people from other institutions in Colorado who are students. And then typically about half of our cohort is from anywhere else, like in the country. So we really do try to kind of help building these networks and building expertise at different institutions in D&I science. It's one of the things that we really love, is that we get to have people from like a whole bunch of different institutions on here. So you can look, if you're interested, the slide that Borshika shared with all of the kind of fields that our current students are from. We have a list of, people who are in the last several cohorts, and you can just get an idea of where they're from, and you might find somebody at your own institution, for example, who you could talk with, which is pretty cool. So let me stop sharing. That's my email address. I'm pretty easy to find though. And then Galit, if you have application specific questions. And we will open it up to questions if anybody has a question that they would like to ask.
So I see some questions in the chat, Tina. I will start bringing them forward, and then we can go through as we are getting new ones. So if someone is interested in joining a course prior to being admitted in the full cohort, how do we handle that, Tina?
So most of the courses have the intro course as a prerequisite. So if you have not taken that intro course, it is possible that you could take a course if you have other D&I training. And so that is sort of on a case-by-case basis, whether we make an exception to the prerequisite requirement or not. When you are in the certificate program, you have preferential registration. So in our classes, all of the seats are upfront held for certificate students until all of the certificate students, there's like a date they'll give you. If everyone is registered by that date and there are seats remaining, then we will let other people take the classes as long as they meet the prerequisites. So we have had people who've had like extensive D&I training somewhere else, and then they've moved here, for example, and they want to take an elective class. They've been able to do that before. And so it's a combination of if there's space in the class and if you have already kind of met the requirements to take one of the more advanced classes. We do offer the intro class which is every fall. And like, so every new cohort comes in together and takes that class. And then people typically disperse after that because you might be taking your other classes in a different order. So you're with students from other cohorts, you get to meet more people, which is great. Um, for the intro course, there's usually more demand. Um, so students who are not certificate students haven't applied, for example, or are thinking about applying and just wanted to take that intro class. We have started offering a section of that class in the spring that is kind of detached from the certificate program. So it's not the incoming cohort, but it's people who've been on the waiting list for that class, for example, and trying to take it. So it is possible to take the intro class without the certificate program. Um, and the whether that class is offered or not depends on how many students there are and if we have instructors willing to teach it in the spring. So the surefire way to get it is like to apply and get into the certificate and then take it with me in Borshka in the fall. But we do have another route that we're trying to make it more available. Um, what other questions are on here?
Okay, so going to the next one, um, we are going to answer, is the schedule traditionally for the courses 3 to 1 hours per week on the same day or spread out across multiple days a week? It is It's an interesting question. We had a discussion about this. We have a set time and day for each course given in that year. We have found that Tuesdays were very popular in the previous year, so we might have offered a couple of different classes, but we are trying not to overlap. So basically, most people take one classes per semester because that's how much they can take with their full workload. You are able to take two classes. We try not to overlap our classes that we offer in the same semester. So in the fall, we try to make sure that we are not overlapping those two classes that Tina introduced you to. And I think that Tuesday have been very popular, but I don't know, Tina, if other days came up as well for classes in general.
There's just it really depends a lot on instructors' availability. So I would say that there are lots of classes that are offered kind of in the middle of the day on Tuesdays or Thursdays because that's just how they've been offered. The summer class I think often meets in the morning. That grant writing class, I think it's often
Thursday. Yeah.
yeah, like a Thursday morning or something. Um, the designs and mixed methods class is often a later afternoon class. They all meet once a week, though. That question is if it's a 2 credit hour class, it meets once a week, usually for like a shorter number of weeks because it's only 2 credits. If it's a 3 credit class, it usually meets once a week, generally for an hour and a half, depending a little bit on the class, usually for 15 weeks. Like, so if you have specific questions about that, feel free to email. I can give you a little bit more information about it.
So in terms of do we have any in-person on-site components? No, we don't. So if you never want to set foot in Colorado or Denver, you will not have to do that to complete this program. Although we have some conferences that are offered in usually early June that you are welcome to sign up for so you can meet us in person, some of us, but it is not anyways a requirement. So we have many students that we have only met at the DNI conference or never, and we are still in a very good relationship with them. The other question is, Tina, about completion attrition rates. And I think that I like the idea of saying that it's almost 100%, if not 100. What is
It is very high. I just was calculating it. That's why I was like
okay?
slightly distracted a second ago. I'm so glad somebody asked that question because I always mean to calculate this that I never did. So since our program started, we have had 96 students accepted to the certificate program. Seven did not, no, seven. Wait, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, seven did not finish, which is just about exactly 7%. And when I look at those seven, um, a couple of them did lots of the program and then they changed their job and so they just decided they weren't going to finish the certificate program. Two of them went and worked at other institutions, like we have somebody who went and became a director of something and so couldn't finish it. So it's like about a 7% non-completion, so 93% completion rate to date. And I think we have just hit our 50th graduate, although Jordan will help me with that later. We usually send out like a congratulations thing. So out of the 93, more than half have finished the program so far. And yeah, we have the classes are awesome. Like the students are amazing. So it's a fun program to teach in, but also to be part of because the networking and just getting to know these people in different fields who are using the same methods, you learn so much from people in other fields and how their field is or is not using implementation science. It's like a very rich way of developing a lot of expertise in implementation science in general. The workshop, um, it is a nice introduction. The workshop, like fun fact about the workshop, is that it is based on the intro course. So the intro course is a 15-week, 3 credit hour graduate level class. And then what we have done with it is tried to pare it down to topics that can be done in like 2 half days. And then there's sort of like an intensive option for like a small group working with people on your grant application as part of that workshop. So it's like a microcosm of the intro class. I would say that it is a lot. Like your brain, you got to be ready for that workshop because it's like hour after hour of people coming in and presenting on all of these topics. Oh, the link for the workshop. I don't know if Jordan is still here.
I am here. Tina, we are still putting it together, but we are
Oh, okay,
April,
we don't have the registration link. They're
April,
probably waiting for me, actually, you all. That's what Jordan is waiting for, is for me to send him some information. But it is on, is it those
April
dates?
8th. It's
Yeah,
April 8th.
April 8th and 9th. And it will be taught mostly by instructors who already teach in the DNI certificate program. But I would say it is a nice introduction. The only problem with it is that like if you waited to do that before you decided to apply, you would actually miss this year's application cycle. So you could apply, go to the workshop, and then say, oh, these people, there's no way I'm doing this program. Quit after you go to the workshop. Hopefully, you would go to the workshop and be super excited to start in the fall. All right. Thanks, you all. It was wonderful. I hope we got to all your questions. If we didn't, please just email. We're happy to give you more information.